And we are live. Hello, everyone. We're going to be starting here in just a few moments, letting the last few folks trickle in. But while we're waiting for them, we'd love to hear where you're tuning in from for today's webinar. And Ryan, will you remind me where you're joining us from?
So I am in upstate New York, so Rochester. So we are closer to Niagara Falls than the city. So,
Oh, cool. Yeah, we would drive through there. I lived in Vermont for a time with my wife.
Okay.
And love that part of the country.
Yeah, it's nice up here now. It's summer now, so rough winters, but nice during the summer.
Yeah, the winters up there are no joke. Do you have those big tiger mosquitoes in the summer, though?
Yeah, we have some large mosquitoes during the summer. Lots of bugs.
Yeah, I feel like that's maybe one of the few things I don't miss about Vermont or that part of the country. All right, well, it is 12 o'clock, so we can go ahead and get started for this conversation. Welcome to the Agency Mastery Series. I'm Chris with the Cloud Campaign team. Joining us today is Ryan Wilsey of Noticestry. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
So glad to have you, because today we're going to be talking about pricing strategies, pricing approaches, for your agency. Before we get into that, though, Ryan, I wanted to give you an opportunity just to kind of introduce yourself a little bit and give us a little history about your background.
Sure. So I'm one of the owners of Noticestry. We've been doing this since 2014. We've got about 150 clients that we manage on the day-to-day basis, and our goal is always to grow and provide the best services possible.
Awesome. And you've got quite a range of services, which is one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you today, because this whole thing about pricing, it can be very tricky depending on where you are with your business, your clientele. And so we wanted to talk about different approaches you can take, different strategies you can use to make a little more sense and find really what's right for your business, for your agency, because there's not really a blanket approach. And also, if you have any questions during this conversation, we will be doing some Q&A at the end, but please feel free to pop those into the chat and we'll just take them as they come. So Ryan, you ready to get into this?
Ask me away. Ask questions. I'm ready to go.
All right. So I'm curious, when we had a little conversation before, just kind of going over, what to talk about. And you mentioned that you use a strategy that's a little more dynamic than just static pricing. Can we start off there a little bit? Static pricing is you charge one flat rate for your service, but you do something a little bit different than that I think is really compelling.
Absolutely. So we are, our static side of things would be their social media management. So when it comes down to the different specific services that they have, it is static. So if they're going to get so many posts a month, or we're going to be posting on these different platforms, that's going to stay the same. What changes is their advertising becomes very dynamic, because we work with them to set the budget. And we've seen a lot of issues with our competitors where they will set these retainers and not end up spending the entire budget. So what'll happen is a lot of people will say, hey, you have a $4,000 budget, and then they spend, let's say, 2,800 of it and keep the rest for themselves. We see that happen time and time again. So what we've developed is a little bit of a strategy that it comes down to where their ads are actually billed dynamically every single month. So if they have a $3,000 budget and we spend $2,800, they're only spending $2,800, and our management fees are a percentage that are automatically tacked onto that. So they know right down to the penny what we spent and when we spent it and where it was spent, versus just kind of giving them that blanket rate.
And that's really interesting, because I feel like a lot of the work, especially agency work, is done on that retainer basis. And to me, this seems like a shift more, to sort of favor your customers, your clients, right? Because they're really only getting what they pay for, and not just kind of leaving all of this money on the table, in a sense. Is that
Right, absolutely. So we have about a 95% retention rate for our clients, and that's pretty awesome since we've been doing this since 2014. And the reason we really believe as part of that is the fact that we are so transparent with every single penny that we spend. They know where it went, how effective it was, and where it could go in the future, right? Because we see it happen all the time as well. When again, these people set these big budgets and these expectations that the client had no idea it didn't work out and why it didn't work out. which is a side of that agencies never want to talk about, but it's totally true that when you set a strategy in place, everybody has high hopes for it, but you never know until it's actually implemented how effective is it going to be.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, you're testing a hypothesis, and you have to spend some resources to do that. And if if you have a scientific mindset, or even just a logical mindset, you want to be able to measure your performance and monitor that. So by drilling down this way, is it safe to say that this is created that like extra transparency, or that trust? Because to me, that's
Absolutely.
like that seems to be huge.
Right, and it has, right? That's been a big change. Is when we have, and the funny part is we've actually had clients that, I mean, we don't have 100% retention rate, right? We've had clients that have left us, they've gone other places, and they've actually come back. We've had this happen a few times, and they're like, well, we've never actually worked with an agency outside of you that has been transparent enough to show us why it didn't work, and you were willing to spend the time with us to show us that, and we see it every single time it charges our account or our credit card that, oh wait, we didn't spend the full budget, and you guys are right on top of understanding why. The other thing that we've set the expectation with a lot of our clients is we're really only making money if you're making money, right? Because if we can't spend that, we can't make the money. So
Yeah, and I feel like that's just more of like an enlightened approach to this type of work, right? That to me just seems very fair, and that transparency lends to that. I am curious though. It seems like this might be just not understanding the depths of your business, but this seems like it might take a little more time and effort for you and your team to do. So like why? I'm really curious. Like why go this route? What was the impetus for this sort of shift?
right, and we've thought a million times of how do we get rid of this, right? Is this the right thing? Because you're right, we actually have a person here that their job as the client success coordinator is really to undertake is how can we do better at billing? How can we understand that a little bit better? Um, and we're like, well, we could delete an entire position if we just took our billing and we made it straight up. It's going to be this price every single month. One of the tools that we've used to help manage this quite a bit is a tool called AppBind. It is a startup that is super cool. It is the founder of FreshBooks as part of it. So they really
You said it was
understand
ad find. Sorry, like ad find.
app bind, like application and bind. And what
App
they do is
find.
it's 100% towards client billing. And again, talk about how we could make more money, but we don't. Is their fee is 1% of everything that's spent. That's how they make their money, right? So they're making their money off of that 1% that's spent. But for us, it actually saves probably 4 days of making the calculations, right? Of pulling all of the billing out of Facebook and Google and TikTok or whatever platform we're running on and pulling those numbers. Instead, we already got our money in for it. So it's kind of like a retainer in the sense of we know that we already have that money in house. We don't have to wait till we bill at the end of the month. And at the same time, we don't have to sit there and do the calculations. So it's very obvious everything that happened throughout that month.
Yeah, and I think, excuse me, being able to find those maybe like those tools that kind of have that connective tissue to help with that process seem to help quite a bit. Is that?
Absolutely. And it's again, it's as easy as we send basically a link to the client and we're like, hey, go ahead and fill out this form, put in your credit card information if you want to pay the credit card fee, put in your bank information if you want no fees. They understand it, really straightforward. And there you go. Your variable subscriptions will be billed here. You're going to know every single second that they're charged.
Now, so you have your static pricing for your kind of standard services like social media management. Then you add something like this for your advertising that's a little more dynamic. So you don't have a singular pricing strategy for your customers. Can you comment a little bit on your blended pricing model, like how that looks for specific projects or?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so our pricing model is, and we talked about this a little bit too, is we give them all of these options when they first come on as a client, right? It's a pretty dynamic proposal, honestly, right? They have the choice. We recommend a package to them, but it's really a la carte. If they want to add services, they're more than welcome to add those services. If they don't want to, we'll say, hey, we strongly recommend you add these. To a standpoint of if they're going to say, I want to do social media with no advertising, we're probably going to be like, we're not going to help you. But the idea that makes it like that is it becomes dynamic in the sense of they know what they're going to be billed every single month. And then if they want to add stuff on, our client success coordinator will actually take the time to spend with them and say, hey, we think this service would be a really good fit. This is why it would be a really good fit. And this is what it's going to cost you. We try again to be transparent in their price and give it to them up front. We do have a large set of clients that do hourly billing, and that would be for design jobs or one-off jobs or long-term website updates. But they, again, know about how many hours it's going to take ahead of time so that it's not too dynamic.
Okay, there's one thing in particular, one thread that I would love to pull on a little bit. You said that somebody wants social media management, but they don't want paid advertising, and you mentioned that we wouldn't probably help that client. I would love to know why. Like, why would you choose not to help somebody in that case, or
Absolutely.
other circumstances where you would turn down work?
And our big reason behind that is, as most agencies know now, is there's not a real good reach on organic on Facebook anymore, right? There's a time and place for it. Most of our clients want at least to do Facebook. We have actually no clients at this point that don't do Facebook, in addition to other outlets. Behind that is we don't think that we can really help them be successful, right? And we've had it happen where somebody will come in and say, hey, I don't care if I spend $1,000 a month posting on Facebook, but I don't want to do any ads. And the problem is 2 months, 3 months down the road, they're going to come back to us all upset and be like, well, how come 2 people liked my post, or 2 people shared my post, or how come nobody saw this? And you go back to them and say, well, you have 100 followers, right? And with 10% of the people seeing that on average, it's not going very far. So our other thing is we try not to bring in a client that we don't think we can be successful with, because it's not good for anyone. And that, again, would hurt our retention rate, and it would hurt them, right? They're wasting their money at that point.
Yeah, and I just think the reason I wanted to pull on this a little bit, it can be so tough when you're really trying to find work and you're looking to serve people, especially the audience that we serve is primarily engaged maybe in social media management, and so ensuring that those efforts are effective requires more than just posting several times a day. It requires more of a robust strategy, which involves paid advertising. And I think the main thing that stood out to me about your agency, Ryan, is just this dedication to being successful, to the customer success. It's evident in how you've built your pricing model, which is great, but it also seems apparent in terms of the work that you select and allow your agency to take on.
Yeah, that's been a big growth challenge, right? In the sense of when we started, we would take anybody, right? They have $100 a month. We'll figure it out. We'll make something happen for that $100 a month. But over time, we learned that more clients isn't necessarily better, and pleasing the clients that you have is more important, and figuring out how to grow those clients, because we have clients that own 4 or 5 businesses, and well, you want those other businesses when they come in with one, and the best way to do that is how do you impress them with one so that they'll give you more and more business. There's no marketing cost to that. Then that's a really nice thing, and they know the right people to probably refer you to. That kind of builds that network up. And again, we want them to stay with us because they're already paying us. There's no cost to keep them if we can keep them happy. And that's where that client success coordinator comes in, is the idea is that we're ahead of it. So if they have an issue, we know before they know, and we can work with them to make it right or avoid it to begin with.
Yeah, and it's really neat that you can build those relationships that lowers the cost of acquisition for new business, whether it's other companies they own or just referrals, which are always a great source of free new business. I'm curious, like as you build a relationship with a customer, what are some other ways then you can kind of maximize that customer's potential in relation to like your business, your agency's growth?
Yeah, I mean, maximizing the potential of a current customer. I think the best way that, I mean, that's a tough one right there. I think the best way that we do that is kind of just continuously working with them to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that everything that comes out of them is really good quality content, really good ads that are put together. And we can kind of just continue that growth, but then they start referring us, right? Because I think one of the best examples that I have most recently is a roofer, right? They switched to another company for about a year, and all of their leads dropped off. The second they came back to us, all of a sudden they have more leads than they can handle. And for us, that's what's important. If they can get that business in the door, they're going to be satisfied. If we can make sure that we're ahead of it and we say, hey, maybe you should be doing billboards this month instead of just doing it all on social media, they'll take that recommendation and say, well, we really appreciate you thinking about us. We appreciate you going above and beyond to figure out what the best strategy is.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is, when you're a business owner and if you're doing roofing and that's your business, you're not thinking about marketing. You're not thinking about what's going to be the best placement for my, desired customer base. So it's really cool that you're able to think about, well, what's really going to set this customer up for success, not give them the things they don't need, but really focus on the things that are going to benefit them. That's just, it's really heartwarming to when you encounter agencies that are really taking that holistic approach and taking the time to do the discovery, to help their customers succeed.
Well, yeah, and it's definitely going above and beyond too, because I think that we work with a lot of other agencies too. That it's just we're just doing social media. That's all we're going to do for you. We don't do anything else. And there's a point to we will stop and say this is not a service we offer. But if it's something that we know that we can do really really well at, if it's graphic design or helping them with some print material, that turns into then one is lucrative for us because now we're offering more services to this client house. But we also know that we have that retention, we have that referral. But if somebody came to us and said, hey, I just want you to make me business cards, we're probably actually going to say no, because we don't want that as our primary business. But if once they are a client, if it's something that we know we can do and we can do it right, we'll be a part of that.
Yeah. So essentially you're trying to build the initial relationship and then position yourself as this, one-stop shop for, for whatever they need in terms of marketing, materials, collateral, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. And we probably won't tell them that ahead of time, but that's helps us kind of vet the right client at the right place, and really set that expectation. And we've just done really, really well with that aspect. And the other thing is we're really honest when it's something we don't want to do. There's definitely been some of the scenarios when people want a whole bunch of TV commercials and they think we'll go film them. I'm not doing it, right? And we're clear with that. And that has been a good thing for the retention and honestly the billing too, because it's not something that I want to go hire a subcontractor for, figure out how much it costs. But that referral at that point becomes very, very strong.
Well, so I would love to kind of dive into that a little bit. That the notion or the concept of being able to take on a job that you're not going to do yourself, but to subcontract it. Um, do you take that as like a case by case basis on whether or not, like based on what the job is, the client, and who you have in your network? Do you have a strict policy of not doing that? Like how do you sort of approach some of those more complex projects like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So our approach on that is based on our client size, right? So we have a good amount of clients that they want to be hands off. They don't care what it costs them. They don't want to know what it costs them. They just want it to happen. And that scenario, we would take the whole approach. We would find the company to make them. Let's say if they're doing a TV ad or something, we'd find the company that's really good at producing that and putting that together. In that case, and then get it produced. However, if it's a smaller client, and let's say it's a smaller client that wants a bunch of print material, but they don't know how much they want to spend on it, and they just want to pay for the design, we might help them out with the design and then find like a local print house that's willing to spend the time with them to find whatever size business the card they want for $14 versus 15. And that, so it is kind of a case by case basis. And we found that that works really well. And it's generally based on size and how we do their billing. And again, those larger clients that budget's not an object, it's a little bit different story than the majority of our clients that are very, very budget conscious. We figured out that it's much better to refer them, let them have that good or bad experience with the referral source. It doesn't come back on us, and 90% of the time it's pretty good, and they're satisfied. We're happy because we didn't have to get in the middle of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said of not getting involved in projects that require just too much of your team, that extra resource, or even just that, the burden of stress of taking on something like that's not a great fit. It's always just it's easy. It's nice when when you're in a place where you can make those referrals or pass that off. I do want to focus a little bit more on like maybe the smaller agency side, or maybe even in your experience when you were just starting off. What were some of the challenges you had with pricing your services, and what worked for you during those early years?
So yeah, I mean, I think a good example of like pricing services would be understanding your value and your value as an agency. And something I kind of touch on for this is like, believe it or not, web hosting is a great example of one that's tough to struggle with, because every place on the internet you'll see, I believe it's what, $5, $10 a month for hosting, shared hosting, And all of these clients and small business owners go out and they see, hey, I can go host my site here for $5. Why would I pay you $125 a month to host your site? And I'm like, well, and so part of that was understanding how do we build that value. And a lot of times, even with social media, we'll tell clients, you can go do this yourself. You're welcome to go do this yourself. We're not going to tell you we're doing anything special necessarily, but we know that you don't have the time to do it, which has been a very interesting strategy towards the clients. Now, when it comes to like web hosting, the reason we charge what we charge is because you're getting a 24/7 uptime. You're getting our support team on top of like the Google Cloud support team that we're using. Not to mention, we spend more money to make sure your site is always working and going quickly. So that's been a struggle because, again, when we started, it was really tough for us to even say we want $25 a month to host your site, because especially then it was $5 a month to go out someplace else and find hosting. Same thing with social media. They would always tell us, well, I can have my secretary post for me. Okay, great, do it. Is what we finally learned is the right answer, because they'll come back in, I don't know, a month or two and say, well, my secretary's not posting for me. Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's an interesting strategy. What steps did I always find this interesting? What path did you take? What steps did you take as you kind of honed in on your value that you were able to pitch that? Like, what did any framework or perspectives? Were there any aha moments that you had or revelations?
So a lot of that was, again, coming up with our structure and understanding our pricing and what can we find the average client to fit in. And I think when we first started, we figured out that, okay, most people have at least $500 a month to spend on our business. Now, obviously, inflation and the years have gone by, and that's gone up to, hey, they should have at least $1,000 a month to spend. And so that within that, we'll kind of set that budget with that client. And that's helped a lot, understanding what do they have to spend on marketing and what's their stretch goal too, because maybe we can get them started somewhere that makes sense for both of us and work with them to grow that. That's been a huge thing that we've had to work on, is how do we get more money out of the client to prove to them that it's going to be successful, and what's that starting point that makes sense? Because we've definitely had clients that we've brought in that they only want to spend $1,000 a month, but then leaves them with a very small ad budget. They're not going to be successful. And then we've also had clients that want to spend a ton of money, but then we'll figure out that they'll be out of business in 3 months if they do that. So really taking the time to spend with them and understand is way better than, hey, this is exactly what we're going to do and this is why. Instead, figuring out this is what fits for you and this is why.
Yeah, and I think that just goes back to that initial discovery process that you go through. Can you kind of comment on that? Like, what other things are you probing for when you're looking to see if a customer is the right fit in terms of how you like to bill and price your services and what you're offering?
Yeah, absolutely. And part of what we look at is we try to work on like a marketing cost with them too. What's your acquisition cost for your clients? Because that's been a really interesting thing to figure out with clients. Because if we're working with like an HR compliance client, their average client size is $10,000. So their marketing cost is, if it's $1,000 for that client and they're making $10,000 a year on them, that's okay. But if it comes down to a vitamin company and they're selling vitamins for $10 to $15 a bottle, they probably don't want to spend more than a few bucks on that marketing cost. And that's something that has helped us help set those prices, because, or that expectation, you have to sell this many bottles of vitamins to come up with your marketing budget. And this is what you should expect to spend on that. And that goes to say that every client's unique, and we need to understand where they want to be and where they are. And then what do they have in between to spend there? Because the thing that we had happen in the beginning too was you'd have this person that was really ambitious, wanted to max out their credit card with us and make it happen, but then they're not going to be in business in 3 months. And yeah, it would have been a great startup. However, it doesn't work out well for us either if they're out of business and have no money to spend.
Yeah, that's, understanding the importance of spending in marketing, sometimes curbing that enthusiasm. There's a time and a place to spend that appropriately. I'm curious. I think it's interesting that approaching it from like, what is your cost of acquisition as the customer currently, and how can we lower that? What are some of the ways that you go about determining or helping your clients determine the cost of their client acquisition?
So we honestly, the ones that are willing to do it, we almost break out their books with them, right? And we'll go through and say, this is what you spent on marketing, and you're telling me you got this many leads from this place, and this is what you spent. So that helps us kind of get a past idea. What we can do kind of going forward is we try to do a little bit of research. So Google AdWords is a great place to get leads. And we'll kind of do some research on here's what your cost per click is going to be based on the average. How many leads do you need? And then how much money out of, or how many leads out of that are you going to close and turn into clients, and how much money are you willing to really put towards that? And usually we can give them a little shove based on what we think. Because it kind of, if I went back to like a roofer or something, their acquisition cost is kind of high. But again, selling a roof isn't cheap, or really installing a roof isn't cheap. And they have a pretty good margin on that. So that's what we try to figure out with them is what is that margin and what do you want to take home as a profit? And I think the other thing we've learned is a great example of this would be is we had a boat club and we would get them hundreds of leads a month, but they weren't calling them back. And so what we found out is as the marketing company, we did our job and we got them in the door. However, if they weren't closing those leads, they weren't counting them as anything good for themselves. So that's been another thing that we've tried to work on with clients is, okay, we got you these leads in the door. What are you doing to manage them after that? And a little bit extended past our marketing expertise of what we want to do. But at the same time, we need to hold the client's hand to make sure that happens sometimes, because otherwise they're not going to be in business in a few months if they're not calling all of those leads and spending all this advertising money.
Yeah, well, so you this is like the classic like marketing sales conundrum. Like marketing is getting the leads and it's expected that the sales role is to close them. What happens in between in that handoff, especially given this kind of circumstance where you are an agency getting paid for your services delivering to the client? I'm curious, what have you done? Like, what have you done to kind of help in some of those instances to, basically convert that lead?
So one of the big upsells that we came up with, and I'm sure a lot of people do this, but in like the last 3 or 4 years that we've really pushed hard is actually client consulting. And that's an interesting upsell on our part because we used to meet with clients and make $0 on it, right? Because we just wanted to retain this client, make them happy. But what we did is we turned it into a paid service, and it ranges anywhere from $300 to $900 a month, and they get anywhere from an hour to 2 hours of time out of us a month for that time. However, we found out that it really holds them accountable because now they're paying us to talk about their leads and to spend time with them and go through the list. This upsell for us, it's our most successful. It's our most successful clients. They're willing to now take the time to go through their leads. They know they have to get ready to meet with us, and that they know that they have to come through for their action items. That's been one of the most interesting ones we came up with. We never thought it would work this well, and now I would say 70% of our contracts that go out or proposals that go out have consulting on there. And that's part of managing it. We'll help them set up a CRM if they need it, but 90% of the time it's getting them to do the work. And like we talked about earlier, if it's a roofer, if it's a guy that owns a marina, the last thing they're thinking about is their marketing, because if it's working, they have people in the door.
Interesting. So you were able to create an additional profit center for your agency by asking your customers to pay them to hold them accountable for the stuff you were going to tell them to do anyways.
Exactly.
Is that
and honestly, it turns into just like what we're doing today. It's usually like a quick, honestly, it's Google Meet for a lot of our clients that are out of town, or they'll hang out in the office for an hour, or some of them are so unaccountable that it's half-hour a week, and somebody in our office will hop on a call with them and be like, I need all of this for social media. And then somebody else will hop on and I need all of this for the email campaign. It's been a really interesting thing. But the second they start paying for that, and the second they know they have a meeting on their calendar, stuff starts happening, and it's amazing to us. And the other thing is we do try to track the leads because conversions are really, really important to us. So we can also pull out the list then and say, well, you got 500 leads on Google. What are you telling me? You have no leads. Or if we went into some of like the local service ads, we've actually pulled out the list, and Google will now on local services record the calls and show the numbers. We found out that one of our clients wasn't calling any of them back. So same thing. And they're trying to tell us marketing is not working. And all of a sudden it's a big turnaround. So these consulting calls, they paid off.
Yeah. Well, Jennifer and chat and I both think that is brilliant. So but that's, so again, as you're building out your pricing strategy and pricing model from your business, like those are some great ways to just create a whole profit center virtually from nothing, while also increasing the efficacy of your services that you're delivering, to be able to monetize your client's success in that way. I think is really powerful, because just like you go to the gym and you pay a personal trainer or a coach, or you're a working professional and you hire a professional coach or a life coach, you're that really adds to the accountability because you're giving up a resource for that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we came up with that's pretty interesting in this is as we've grown, a lot of the consulting ended up, it was me and my business partner in the beginning. There was the two of us had the knowledge and it was easy to do. Well, now it's gotten pretty difficult because I cannot sit in meetings all day and still get stuff done. So what we've taken is we've actually involved our sales team in it a lot too now. And they'll get a percentage of that consulting fee, which makes them really happy. But it also makes them go hang out with that client on a monthly basis to, well, upsell them, see how they're doing. And they feel that they are now super involved with their client, and it's nice because it doesn't feel like the sales guy walks away after the sale. So that's another thing that we've worked on that's working pretty well.
That's a great point because you're limited on your availability, and that's not scalable. But allowing that to be an incentive for your team too to jump in on a commission-based consulting, that's also internal growth for your team as you're growing your company. That's really cool. And Damien had a comment. He's already incorporated this as part of their proposals. And that's great, Damien. Just having that dedicated spot to go over leads. In my professional career, like we used to have these meetings at companies I work for. Like we need to have these conversations about the quality of leads. Are they right? Do we need to adjust our marketing efforts, our targeting? Or is it more of just a closing thing? Do we need a stronger close? Do we need to actually call them, like physically pick up the phone? Sometimes that's a big step. So yeah, it offers also, I think, not only the accountability, but also like a method of troubleshooting too, as you hone your sales marketing and sales funnel.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's for us, again, it improves that communication. Those clients are, so it used to be our best client was the one we never heard from. They paid their bill, we did the work, and we were happy. But those also became the scariest client as we grew. And as time went on, right? So they might be paying us plenty of money every single month, and we're super happy. But sometimes when months go by and you don't hear from them, it's not surprising to be like, "What are you guys doing for me? I don't even know." So again, it's helped a lot, and it's changed our culture towards, again, what we are looking for to keep those clients happy and really what we're trying to be about.
Yeah. And again, like the common thread that I've seen here, and also that through some of the other agency owners that I've had the privilege to talk to on this show, is just this level of empathy or humanization, or just I don't know, a more holistic approach to really understanding their clients and customers' needs, and just doing the best that they can to serve them well, with transparency. And from what I've seen from talking to you and others in this similar boat, is just a sense of just success, and I don't know, just maybe just like a sense of fulfillment. So I really appreciate you being able to come on here and share your perspectives and some of the experiences you've had. I did want to open it up to Q&A for a little bit. So if you do have questions, please pop them into chat. Give you a few moments to type those up. But while we're doing that, Ryan, if you have any pluggables you'd like to plug for your agency or any other projects, or where someone could find you if they want to ask you more.
Yeah, so I can always be found, I guess I can throw it in chat here, at our website.
Yeah, and we'll be throwing this up on our website, as well as sharing the replay for everybody, so you won't miss it.
But yeah, so I mean, pluggable wise, I think obviously we try to take a little different approach at the agency, look at things, and working in kind of like my former life, it was, you're another number in a company. So we try to really build that smaller feel approach while continuing to grow. And that's honestly a struggle, right? When you get more clients, it's hard to keep up with them all. And that's been one of our big things that I push for is, okay, if it takes us 6 months longer to get to our goal, but it keeps everybody happy, I'm about that. And that goes for, I mean, our staff and our clients. So, and kind of going above and beyond for the client. And we've definitely learned to educate them as best possible so that when we go above and beyond, they know what we're doing and what it's going to cost them. But at the same time, we've noticed that pays off. And if we can't do it, that honesty, right? Just being clear with them that this is not something we're going to do, or, hey, we've never done this before. We're willing to try it for you, but we don't know how it's going to work out. That's another big thing that I think has been big. I guess the other plug I would give is that app, like the app Bind. So it's APP Bind. Here, I can give you the website. I'll throw that in there.
I was trying to search for it. I didn't have any luck. Might have misheard you.
Yeah, and it's actually a pretty small company. We're kind of like, I mean, we helped them kind of test it and spend some time there. And for us, again, it's a cost thing, but it's built a lot of value in the sense of less hands-on with the billing, which is where nobody wants to spend time. Everybody wants the money, but nobody wants to do the work in that sense. Um, and it's worked out well for clients. They get a couple bills a month now because they get this one and they get ours, but they seem to be okay with that. That was a big concern in the beginning when we did this. Like, are people going to freak out that we asked for their checking account twice? And it turns out not really. And it turns out that we found out people don't care if they pay by credit card and pay the extra fee. So it's an interesting thing, but it's worked out really, really well.
Yeah, and that's something you all can try, see if it works for you. The great thing is there's always the options, and that's the software that you use that allows you to like have toggles within your invoicing, right? So your customer can select services they want, or is that a different?
So that is a company, and this is an interesting one. So this is called, I'll put that in there. This is called Pludio. This is where we do our proposals. They are a very, very big startup. So it is beta like software, but that changed our proposal life a lot in the sense of it's very interactive, it's very clean. And the interesting part is a lot of people we found out will pay their deposit right there, even though they're going to have an onboarding meeting. They're going to give us their information again. It is nice that when we have that onboarding meeting, whatever that deposit is, we have it. So that's changed it. So day to day, unfortunately, we use Zoho for our CRM. Someday maybe Cloud Campaign, but that has, again, it's not fully integrated, which kind of stinks. That I'd love to have everything integrated together, but it's made that difference in closing those sales. So that's a big thing, and it makes it super clear to the client, and it's easy for our sales team to use, and it's the world's most inexpensive software. Pludio is like $40 a month, so it's not very much money.
Nice.
Yeah, again, a startup, so you got to be dealing with the bugs sometimes, but a big change in our process.
Yeah, I think what's really cool about that is just being able to offer all those different options within your proposals engine, being able to see visually like what that's going to look like from a budgeting standpoint. That's a very cool customer facing tool. So some new things for you all to explore and see if they'll fit your business. All right. Well, I think, there's a question in here. Jenna.
So, all right. So the projects with Pludio. So we did do this at one point where we would do a separate project for each service we offer a client. We did do this at some standpoint. At this point, we honestly just use them for proposals. So we have the services listed in there, and they kind of accept that proposal. From there, good old Zapier takes that whole proposal and sends it over to Zoho because they just don't have as good a feature yet. It's not right for us yet. So unfortunately, we don't use Pludio for really anything past the proposal or the lead stage. And it's honestly because it's a startup and it's not robust enough for us yet.
Yeah, so you're just using the piece that fits for you right now. But
yep, and I'd say our big goal in billing is something we're working on this year is kind of customizing in Zoho, right? And nobody actually, I've never met somebody that likes Zoho. Because it's basically it's a version of Salesforce, Salesforce competitor, but super customizable. The piece that we're working on this year is actually, as we have these pieces go together, is that the client will have a portal that they can go in and they'll be able to see their Pludio proposal, they'll be able to see their AppBind account, and then all of their information in Zoho. So eventually all of our pieces will be kind of linked together. And that's our goal for the client, is at least on their end, the less clicks are the better.
Yeah. Lots of apps.
Oh, lots of apps. So yeah, so I can, hold on. I'll send I don't know if I should do this. Should I send Zoho in the Cloud Campaign chat here before the CRM comes out?
I think that's okay. So we are coming out with an agency hub is the new platform that we're coming out with. And you can actually go to cloudcampaign.com/agency hub. It's a software that'll allow you to manage your projects and clients and invoicing. But we are currently accepting members for the waitlist for our beta, which will be going live soon. But let's go back to Jennifer's question of all of these apps. Ryan.
So Zapier is our connecting force behind a lot of it. So we do unfortunately API development for some clients. So some of it's hard coded, but a lot of what we do, and that's a good tool for clients, is Zapier has, I don't know, a million connections out there. And I believe Cloud Campaign works with it to a standpoint. Um,
Yes.
so it is pretty cool. That helps us connect all of those pieces. Our biggest goal is to push data into one place for the clients. And that's what we've noticed is if we can make it super simple for them that they log into a portal, they see their bill, they see their cloud campaign connections, and all of the data that belongs to them. It's awesome and super easy. On our end, it's a little bit more complicated to put all those pieces together, but again, that's something that we'll do for clients. We'll take leads and we'll connect them with Calendly, for instance, right? So that their leads automatically make that calendar invitation. A lot of that ends up being done through Zapier. We have some that use Salesforce. It only needs to end up in there, but then it's nice looking on their website. And I saw that Andrea asked about, is Plutio comparable to Honeybook? I think they're trying to be at some point.
Aspirational.
Yeah, it's a cool program. It's honestly like super cheap. Honeybook we tried way back when, it wasn't customizable enough, and I think that's one of the hard parts about us as an agency is we're super dynamic in what we do in our pricing. So finding that one-stop shop of something that's going to work for proposals and billing doesn't work that well, and it makes it complicated, but it makes the client happy in the long run, and that's what we found.
Yeah, and ultimately, it's like the trick is finding the right software stack that both you enjoy using and fits your business, but also your customers don't find to be a pain in the butt. And that can be tricky because there are so many solutions, so many software and companies offering these services. So folks listening, if that's a conversation that's interesting to you of like how to find software to solve XYZ problem, just let us know what you want to, which one here to discuss, and we can.
Next thing we know,
Yeah,
no new series coming up.
Yeah, well, just it's one question, one type of question that always pops up in the chat is kind of technical and app specific. So if that's what people want to hear about, then happy to geek out on tech, because it's also a good way for us to learn too, like more of what's out there, because there's a lot.
Yeah.
Damien had a question.
Block
using bot blockers.
Yeah, so I mean, you can use like ClickCease is one that we've like been familiar with. A lot of them, if we find the competitor, you can just drop it. So like for Google Ads, we'll just drop it in the IP there, which I believe is how ClickCease works. Is it rotates through the IPs that it puts into Google anyways and keeps a larger database. So 9 times out of 10, we found, at least with our larger clients, the issue with clicking on ads, it happens to lead to one competitor. So you just drop that IP in there and usually it solves that problem. But we've seen it happen. Not so much on the smaller guys. Oh, there you go. See, you're familiar with that one.
I was trying to be quick on the draw for some of these apps.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
No, and I think our big thing is a lot of our clients we found when we're talking about all this software, they really don't care, right? If it works and it works together and it's integrated, they don't care how it works. And that's the most interesting part we've discovered is a lot of our larger clients love Salesforce. We hate it. And our biggest thing that we do is to make it end up in Salesforce if that's what they use. So like we do some of the online schools and their big thing is all of their reps use Salesforce. They don't care how the leads got there as long as they end up in there in the correct format. And that's what we've definitely figured out.
Yeah. Don't really know how the sausage is made. Just give me the end product.
Yep.
Cool. Andrea, yeah, we'll do, we hear you. We'll see if we can explore that as a thread, and see if we can have a conversation around that. All right, we'll take this as the last question from Jennifer. Thank you so much. What sort of agency-based personnel, operations, sales, account executive, is sort of in charge of the software systems and processes? This is a great question because you can wear so many hats as an owner.
I'm with Jennifer on this one too, right? So especially starting, I ended up wearing all the hats, right? So I'm the technical side of the company. My business partner is the sales side of the company. And what we've worked to develop is really we're working on polishing basically our handoff system. And the way that it goes is the sales rep really stays with the client until all of the assets have been received, right? In the social case, it can be a while sometimes to get all of that stuff from the client. So the sales rep, if they want their full commission, their job is to make sure the client gets all of those starting deliverables. From there, it goes to that client success coordinator, whoever is assigned to their account, and they are in charge of making sure that that client continues to send all of the stuff. And then we've actually done really well at starting to branch off the separate projects, right? So our social media team, if it's a social problem, they'll try to handle it on like the level one. And when it gets worse and worse, it goes back to that client success coordinator to chase them down. But as far as like the websites and stuff like that, leaving that with that web design person, as long as the client success coordinator is in touch with them, has worked really well because it keeps me, the owner, really out of the day-to-day dynamics of I want this font changed, I want this picture changed. So as long as stuff is staying on track, we try to leave it with that individual department. When it starts to fall off track, the client success coordinator finds out and tries to put it back on. If it blows up into something huge and we need to worry about setting something up, it generally falls back to me. And generally me and the salesperson will go out there then to try and help out that client.
Yeah. And then I guess like from an operations standpoint, who's managing like your own business's internal infrastructures, that can be, it's that piece is going to, I think, vary widely depending on who you have on your team and what their expertise is. So I guess there's kind of like maybe two parts to that question, if I understood it.
Yeah, I guess my part. So my part is, so generally I end up doing a lot of the research for the software, trying to figure out, okay, how could this work? And doing that framework to lay it out, like the architecture of could this connect to this? How would this work? What we've done down to is generally when it gets into the specific stuff, if it is really crazy and labor intensive, we'll either bring in a contractor that is very well versed in that, that'll work on setting that up to our needs. Or what we'll do is kind of assign it to, I don't want to go back to the client success person forever, but like that type of person would take the time. So like our CRM, right? I took the time to figure out all the connection pieces, but as far as getting the client data in there and like making the emails look nice and coming up with the emails, that falls on generally, we try to find somebody that's got the time and the expertise to spend in that versus just me, the owner, because it's tough as an owner to make sure that that's going to happen and happen well.
Yeah. And the other one thing that's helped me in terms of like going in and setting things up for people and past roles and things, similar situations is if you can transfer that knowledge with some kind of standard operating procedure, if it's like a certain workflow or integration or API connection, whatever it is, if you can capture that process and then be able to transfer that knowledge, then you start to you're more able to delineate or delegate rather that those types of tasks. It also helps taking good notes as you're setting those types of things up for your clients. In their portfolio or however you're tracking your projects or clients, just so you have a reference of what's been done specifically, because if you have a client for 5 years, that's great, but what you did for them 4 years ago in setting up a certain thing, if you don't have good documentation of that, that can really come back to bite you.
Yeah, and there was like way back when, and I'm not saying anybody should ever go pay for this necessarily, but somebody that came up with a lot of good SOPs and ideas was, I think it was a company called Click Minded. And I think that's all they do is they write those and try to make some money on them. But their concept is kind of cool because the idea is you're 100% right, is writing those SOPs. And what we've done is in Zoho, we've set up a lot of those help articles internally. So if somebody does a process or comes up with a good process, they'll either make a Loom video of it or a guide. And then if somebody calls up here and need to know how to do something, anybody in the office can kind of hop on there and find out how somebody did it before and learn a little bit better. Oh, there you go. So Andrea has it.
Nothing like a little bit of social validation for the thing you just said.
So yeah, that's like some of the kinds of things we've tried to do. And so kind of going off of like what ClickMinded did is internally, if somebody did it and took the time to figure it out, I think it's great to document that. And I know it's difficult. And so me personally, what I do for a lot of people is I make a Loom video, and I'll sit there, I'll make a video on my computer, send them the link, they can share it, make a guide if they want to, but then they can actually see what I did, what I clicked on, how I set it up.
Yeah. And that's any kind of tool to help like quickly create those tutorials. One that I've been using recently is called Arcade, which I'll link to. They're another startup that lets you record just screen video and screen grabs for sort of like an app cues like tutorials. But just there's a ton of free tools out there that let you do that. or even if you have to pay a small fee for something that's already been created previously that will save you the time from writing it, it's usually worth the money.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
Ooh, all right. This is for reals the last question, Damien, with a product related question. So you got me with that one. Yes, we are integrating TikTok posting very soon. Keep an eye out for that. It is coming.
cool.
All right, no problem. All right, well, that will wrap up this month's Agency Mastery series. We really hope that this conversation was useful to you. We'll be sending out both a recap video of this recording so you can review it. We'll also be sending a feedback survey. Just want to get your thoughts on what we're talking about and what you'd like to hear about in the future, so we can make sure that we're delivering content to you that's going to be useful for growing your agency. If you're interested, jump onto cloudcampaign.com for social media management software. Check out our new agency hub at new platform. Sign up for the wait list at cloudcampaign.com/agency hub for that. So, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your expertise and perspective.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right. And everyone, we will catch you next month for another conversation. Bye.